Hello and welcome to Cloud Learner's Journey Part 7 of Azure Solutions Architect Real Exam Questions and Answers with Explanation. You can also find reference links in the description. To become an Azure Solutions Architect, you must pass AZ-104 and AZ-305 exam. You can also go through AZ-104 exam video series and links are available in the description. If you like the video, please like, share, comment and subscribe to our Cloud Learner's Journey channel to help you pass AZ-305 exam and become an Azure Solutions Architect. Question number 1. You are designing a large Azure environment that will contain many subscriptions. You plan to use Azure Policy as part of a governance solution. To which three scopes can you assign Azure Policy definitions? And the options are A. Azure Active Directory Administrative Units, B. Azure Active Directory Tenants, C. Subscriptions, D. Compute Resources, E. Resource Groups, F. Management Groups. And correct options are C. Subscriptions, E. Resource Groups, F. Management Groups. Azure Policy evaluates resources in Azure by comparing the properties of those resources to business roles. Business roles have been informed. Policy definition or initiative is assigned to any scope of resources that Azure supports, such as management groups, subscriptions, resource groups, or individual resource. Next, question number 2. You need to recommend a solution to generate a monthly report of all the new Azure Resource Manager resource deployments in your Azure subscription. What should you include in the recommendations? And the options are A. Azure Activity Log, B. Azure Advisor, C. Azure Analysis Services, D. Azure Monitor Action Groups. And the correct option is A. Azure Activity Log. Activity logs are kept for 90 days. You can query for any range of dates as long as the starting date isn't more than 90 days in the past. Next, question number 3. You have an Azure subscription that contains 300 virtual machines that run Windows Server 2019. You need to centrally monitor all warning events in the system logs of the virtual machines. What should you include in the solution? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Answer area for the first one. Resource to create in Azure is a log analytic workspace. You must create diagnostic settings for each Azure resource to send its Azure logs to log analytics workspace to use with Azure Monitor logs. Next answer area. Configuration to perform on the virtual machines is install the Azure Monitor agent. Use the Azure Monitor agent if you need to collect guest logs and metrics from any machine in Azure, in other clouds or on premises, and it manages data collection configuration centrally. Next, question number 4. You plan to deploy an application named App1 that will run on 5 Azure virtual machines. Additionally, virtual machines will be deployed later to run App1. You need to recommend a solution to meet the following requirements for the virtual machines that will run App1. First requirement, ensure that the virtual machines can authenticate to Azure Active Directory to gain access to an Azure Key Vault, Azure Logic App instances, and an Azure SQL database. Second requirement, avoid assigning new roles and permissions for Azure services when you deploy additional virtual machines. Third requirement, avoid storing secrets and certificates on the virtual machines. Fourth requirement, minimize administrative effort for managing identities. Which type of identity should you include in the recommendations? And the options are A. A system assigned managed identity, B. A service principal that is configured to use a certificate, C. A service principal that is configured to use a client secret, D. A user assigned managed identity. And the correct option is D. A user assigned managed identity. Managed identities provide an identity for application to use when connecting to resources that support Azure Active Directory authentication. Next, question number 5. You are developing an app that will read activity logs for an Azure subscription by using Azure Functions. You need to recommend an authentic solution for Azure Functions. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you include in the recommendation? And the options are A. An enterprise application in Azure AD, B. A system assigned managed identities, C. Shared access signatures, D. Application registration in Azure AD. And the correct option is B. System assigned managed identities. A common challenge for developers is the management of secrets, credentials, certificates, and keys used to secure communication between services. Managed identities eliminate the need for developers to manage these credentials. Next, question number 6. Your company identifies the following business continuity and disaster recovery objective for virtual machines that host, scales, finance, and reporting applications in the company's on-premises data center. The sales application must be able to fail over to a second on-premises data center. The reporting application must be able to recover point-in-time data at a daily granularity. The RTO is 8 hours. The finance application requires that data to be retained for several years. In the event of a disaster, application must be able to run from Azure. The recovery time objective is 10 minutes. You need to recommend which services meet the business continuity and disaster recovery objectives. The solution must minimize costs. What should you recommend for each application? We have the services Azure Backup only, Azure Site Recovery and Azure Backup, Azure Site Recovery only. Answer area for sales, Azure Site Recovery. Azure Site Recovery coordinates virtual machine and physical server replication, failover, and fullback. Disaster recovery solutions have smaller recovery time objectives because they are more in sync with the source. For finance, Azure Site Recovery and Azure Backup. Backup ensures that your data is safe and recoverable, while Site Recovery keeps your workloads available when outage occurs. For reporting, it's Azure Backup only. Azure Backup data on premises and in the cloud. Because of a larger recovery point objective, the amount of data a backup solution needs to process is usually much higher, which leads to a longer recovery time objective. Next, question number 7. You have an Azure subscription. The subscription contains Azure virtual machines that runs Windows Server 2016 and Linux. You need to use Azure Monitor to design an alerting strategy for security-related events. Which Azure Monitor logs tables should you query? The answer: drag the appropriate tables to the correct log types. Tables we have Azure Activity, Azure Diagnostics, Event, Syslogs. For events from Windows Events logs is Events. You can collect events from standard logs such as system and application, and any custom logs created by application you need to monitor. Second answer area for events from Linux system logging is Syslog. Syslog is an event logging protocol that is common to Linux. Applications send messages that might be stored on the local machine or delivered to a syslog connector. When the log analytics agents for Linux is installed, it configures the local syslog to forward message to the agent. The agent then sends the message to Azure Monitor where corresponding record is created. Next, question number 8. You need to deploy resources to host a stateless web app in an Azure subscription. The solution must meet the following requirements. First requirement, provide access to the full .NET framework. Second requirement, provide redundancy if an Azure region fails. Third requirement, grant administrator access to the operating system to install custom application dependencies. Here the solution is you deploy a web app in an isolated app service plan. Does this meet the goal? Options are A, yes, B, no. Correct option is B, no. You deploy 2 Azure virtual machines to 2 Azure regions and you create an Azure Traffic Manager profile. Next, question number 9. You have an Azure web app named App1 and an Azure Key Vault named KV1. App1 stores database connection strings in KV1. App1 performs the following types of requests to KV1. Get, list, wrap, delete. And for unwrap, it's backup, decrypt, encrypt. You are evaluating the continuity of service for App1. You need to identify the following if an Azure region that hosts KV1 becomes unavailable. To where will KV1 fail over? During the failover, which request type will be unavailable? What should you identify? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Answer area for the first one, to where will KV1 fail over, is a server in the paid region. The contents of the key vault are replicated within the region and to a secondary region at least 150 miles away, but with the same geography to maintain high availability and durability of keys and secrets. Regions are paid for cross-region replication based on proximity and other factors. For the second answer area, during the failover, which request type will be unavailable? And the correct option is delete. During failover, Key Vault is in read-only mode. Requests that are supported in this module are list certificates, get certificates, list secrets, get secrets, list keys, get keys, encrypt, decrypt, wrap, unwrap, verify, sign, backup. Next, question number 10. You are designing an application that will be hosted in Azure. The application will host video files that range from 50 MB to 12 GB. The application will use certificate-based authentication and will be available to users on the internet. You need to recommend the storage options for the video files. The solution must provide the faster read performance and must minimize storage costs. What should you recommend? Options are A, Azure Files, B, Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, C. Azure Blob Storage. D. Azure SQL Database. Correct option is C. Azure Blob Storage. Blob storage stores large amount of unstructured data such as text or binary data that can be accessed from anywhere in the world via HTTP or HTTPS. You can use blob storage to expose data to the world or to store application data privately. Thank you for watching part 7 of Azure Solutions Architect Real Exam Questions and Answers. We hope you found it informative and helpful. If you like the video, please like, share, subscribe and comment to our channel for more related topics. We look forward to continuing the journey with you in next videos. Thank you.